Build compelling real-time apps quickly and scale them globally with the PubNub real-time network. Only PubNub delivers the core building blocks needed for any real-time application. Find out for yourself by signing up for free today. Visit pubnub.com. Welcome to This Week in Location-Based Marketing, the most trusted podcast dedicated to the new business of location. Hello, everybody, and welcome to This Week in Location-Based Marketing. This is episode number 140. We're recording this live between Asif and myself on early Sunday morning. That's July 28th, 2013. My name is Rob Woodbridge from Untether.tv, located in sunny Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. And with me, as always, from across the way.
Yeah, Asif Khan from the Location-Based Marketing Association, actually in Toronto. And looks like I'm here for a couple of weeks or something. I don't know what's up with that, but yeah.
I don't believe it. How was the vacation, man?
It was good. I went down to Myrtle Beach, as you saw, and recorded from there. But the best part was we went to Charleston. We go down there every year, but we never really get down to Charleston. So we went down this year and took the kids on the. There's a retired World War II aircraft carrier and battleships and all that kind of stuff, submarines, and had a ball, like going through and touring all that stuff. So it was good.
I think that's very cool. Like, you can do that in San Diego, but it's much easier to do it,
Yep.
in South Carolina. It's a little bit closer for the family. But was it relaxing at least?
Yeah, it was good. Got a fair bit of golf in. It was good.
I love it. Golf, that's not a relaxing sport for me. That's where my blood pressure starts to escalate when you start to talk about golf.
Well, there's the competitive piece of it, but there's for me, just walking around and kind of being outside and
Yes.
not thinking about other stuff is it's relaxing. So
Away from the screen. Well, we got a very busy show here. I mean, we've got our usual. We've got our app fascination of the week. We got a great guest in Tyler Bell, who's the director of product for Factual. We got a great resource which talks about the impact of showrooming and some staggering statistics. Also got another edition of the Mobile Minute with Chuck Martin. We're going to talk about the retail quest for the mobile cookie, which we've talked about so many times before. It's starting to percolate everywhere. Maybe our ideas are spreading, Asif. Who knows?
yeah, maybe we actually have some influence. I don't know.
No. Not even over my
No.
kids do I have any influence. And I know that's the same for most
We like
parents.
to think that we do.
No, it comes out when they're 30 and maybe in prison. There's the influence, right?
Yes.
And we've also got our 6 stories which cover the planet, cover the gamut around the location-based marketing world and out-of-home advertising world as well. But before we get into any of this, I got to know what's going on with the Location-Based Marketing Association. I know it's summer, but there's got to be something brewing.
Yeah, we got a couple of things happening. There's a conference coming up in San Diego, as you just mentioned, called Retail Customer Experience Executive Summit, so that's as the name implies, it's a retail industry conference looking at mobile, location, looking at customer service, bunch of different issues around that. I know AT&T's got a big role in that, NEC as well. And we're involved, the Digital Screen Media Association, and a lot of cool brands. I was looking at the list the other day of just some of the brands that are participating, and you got everybody from eBay to Hallmark and Lego and Walgreens, Westfield malls. I mean, so it'll be pretty interesting, I think, to connect with some of these guys and kind of get caught up on where they're at. So that's August 13 and 14 in San Diego, and then
The week before that, you've got...
week before that, we've got a webinar that we're doing in partnership with iInside, which is a name that people might not know yet, is the new name for what was Wireless Works, which is also Southern California based company. And so iInside is an indoor analytics, indoor location company. And so we're doing a webinar together called How Retail is Changing the Indoor Traffic Analytics. And so that's August 6th, 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. And you can register on our site, or you can register just by going to iinside.com and check that out.
And if you happen to be on Untether.tv, you can check the show notes. I'll create a link, and this is show number 140. So if you're interested in, just go on to Untether.tv, and we'll link you up there as well. So a relatively easy August for you.
Yeah, it's relatively light compared to every other month. But
Exactly. It'll kick in again in September. Enjoy this while you can, my friend.
Yeah.
Before we get into this, I want to ask two things of you, the fine watcher, fine listener. Please, please, please. If you are listening to this and you're enjoying this, we would really appreciate a review on iTunes. If you could go onto iTunes, take a look for This Week in Location-Based Marketing. We are the only one that comes up. We are the only one that is covering this industry with such deep knowledge and consistently for 140 episodes. So if you can reward us with a little 5-star review, a little comment in there, we would really, really appreciate it. That is our currency, and we'd appreciate it if you would. That's a great way to contribute. You can sponsor it, or you can do that. Send us $1, or just give us 5 stars. That's the easiest way to do it. The other thing is, if you have a question about the location-based marketing world, you want to know some facts, you want to know some insight, please reach out. Go to untether.tv/talk, untether.tv/talk, and leave us a question. We'll play it on the air. We'll answer it. We're just accumulating a bunch of these so we can do a separate show, which is all of these questions and answers, but we'll throw some up on the episode as well, if you so choose. So please, untether.tv/talk, and hit us up with a review on iTunes. Why don't we jump into this now, Sif?
Yeah.
We are going to start with the app that is fascinating me these days. It's fascinating quite a few people these days. It is called Everlapse. This is a unique piece of technology. It might sound very obvious, it might sound very common, but this is an application that allows you to create a photo stream and share that photo stream. But what's cool about it is that you can create it, and then you can allow other people to contribute to that photo stream. So what has it got to do with location? Well, the ones that I've contributed to are like live concerts that you're at right now. So there are things like, if you're at a show, they're saying add your live show, your live photo, take a photo from where you are and add it to this, and it just creates this just constant stream. And basically what it does is it scrolls through it at a pretty insane rate. It's very quick. But I mean, I did one, I'll just pull it up for those of you who are watching it on screen. Of course, I did one of, here we go, live Bruce Springsteen shots, right? Of course. And Om Malik did one. If you know Om, he did one around sunsets. And then here's one right now is from where I stand. So this is literally people taking photos of exactly where they are at this very moment, taking a photo and uploading it to the stream. There are 47 contributors to this, bunch of photos. It just streams through like a Vine or an Instagram video. It's constant. And I love this idea of capturing a moment in time, sunsets, capturing a moment in time around where you stand, or even live concerts, or street signs around the world. And I think that this is a very unique application. It's free. There are some hiccups. It's not the company's focus at this moment. It's difficult to friend people and find people, but this is the genesis, I think, of something that's going to be pretty amazing to watch. I love the idea of that contributing factor. It reminds me a little bit of Flock with a little bit fewer restrictions, I would say. But I like this. Everlapse. Just do a search for Everlapse. I think it's everlapse.com, and you'll be able to find that. It's certainly on the iPhone, iOS store right now. Pretty neat.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it looks really cool, and I think that idea of capturing threads of information, whether they're location specific, like at a concert, as you alluded to, or just around a theme, is really interesting. And I think that on this show, obviously we focus a lot on location as we should, but it's not at the behest of kind of leaving out the importance of the temporal element as well, right? Yep. So I think a lot of the way location services evolve is to factor in time, as this second layer on top of them. And I think for me, when I look at what you're doing with Everlapse and what's happening there, it's that time element combined with what's happening at a location and putting those things together. And that for me is part of what, when I look at some of these new location services, or even some of the ones that have been out for a while, it's often the piece that's been missing, right? And we're going to talk about time later on the show too, with another service in one of our stories. But Everlapse, I like it.
So yeah, it is at everlapse.com, and go and check it out. If this is one of those things that it could be frivolous, but it could also take off. Vine was frivolous and it took off, and Instagram was frivolous and it took off, and this is just a great way to share your contextual and time-based photos. I like this. I like this a lot. So everlapse.com. And the other one that I was talking about was the Flock app. So you can go to flockapp.com as well. All right, right before we jump into our stories, I want to play another edition of the Mobile Minute with Chuck Martin, famed author, famed mobile author, and famed business author as well. This time we were going to talk about the quest for the retail cookie in mobile. And we've talked about this quite a bit, is that the disconnect between the small screen that you carry with you and the big screen that we're looking at right now, which is the web. And how do you join those up so that you can create context around purchases and basically streamline that buy for your consumer. So here is the Mobile Minute with Chuck Martin and myself talking about this thing, the retail quest for mobile cookie. Well, it's time for another Mobile Minute. All right, Chuck, we know that there is so much that happens behind the scenes in anything, especially in the mobile. We're talking about cloud, and it just seems so efficient on the device. I got to ask, are we finally seeing the glue that binds the commerce screens together?
Well, we're starting to see some of that. Neiman Marcus, if anyone's been using their app over the last few months, they basically have tied into seriously big data on the back end. And they're using a California-based company called Bloomreach. And what they're doing is they're essentially connecting cross-channel and optimizing search strategy and discovery. So what happens is when someone's using on one system, they'll say, I want to see items more like this. They basically tap photos, and then they are shown more items like that. The system continually learns what the shopper's preference is and then gives them much more relevance. And they basically can identify this across screens, tying the data together. So it becomes really powerful for a retailer.
What are some of the results from this kind of combination or combining or gluing the screens?
Well, what they found was after a couple of days, they basically can make the correlation between screens, and they found that revenue per visitor was up 40% once they start receiving these enhanced shopping things. And the people who used that more like this feature, which I mentioned, generated 150% more revenue than those who haven't used it. So this thing is really catching on.
And that was the Mobile Minute with Chuck Martin. I really appreciate the fact that Chuck does that. Sits with me every week. We do these five a week, one a day during the weekdays. It's pretty amazing. So you can check those out on untether.tv. Thanks, Chuck. Alrighty, Steve, jumping into our stories. The first three. Why don't you kick off the first one with YFind? Here's an acquisition.
Yeah, so YFind is a company we've talked about before on this show, Singapore-based indoor analytics, indoor positioning company, a member of the LBMA, so know these guys really well. They've been, the interesting thing for me about this is the story is they were acquired this week by Ruckus Wireless, which is a well-known hardware player in the space of Wi-Fi gear and routers and all that kind of stuff, along with Cisco and Aruba and everybody else. And for me, the interesting thing is because I know these guys at YFind, fairly well, and been kind of very close to the situation of what's going on. What surprised me early on was they're very, very new to the U.S. market. They're coming from Singapore. They've been active in that market with their solutions for a couple of years. They've been in the U.S. for maybe 4 or 5 months, and in the span of that 4 or 5 months, they did a couple pilots with some retailers in the U.S. Set up a presence. One of the founders basically, said he was going to move over to the U.S. So he's been spending a ton of time over there. And then next thing I know, I'm watching the news feeds this week, and I see YFind's acquired by Ruckus Wireless, and I'm like, oh, it does work that fast sometimes. But so this is great news for those guys. Great guys, by the way, Melvin and Siho and the team over at YFind. And it just points to a trend that we're seeing over and over again, where traditional hardware players in the kind of Wi-Fi space, like Cisco's been all over this. They acquired a few companies in this space. You got IBM acquired ThinkSmart. You got Google, Microsoft going crazy on ramping up their their indoor mapping capability. Aruba, a few months ago now, we talked about on the show here, acquired Meridian, which is a direct competitor, you could say, to YFind in this space. So all the hardware players are trying to make sure that they have this capability, not just to sell hardware, but to offer the service layer or the application layer, let's call it, on top of that gear in terms of helping their customers be able to use the gear in effective ways to do analytics and track, where people are in stores. So this is just, for me, the continuation of an ongoing trend within that sector.
Yeah, and the lesson that I learned here is if you want to get bought, just move to the U.S. or call Yahoo.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Isn't that pretty much what it is?
Yeah.
Exactly. Distills it down. Yeah, if you want to get bought, you can't do it anywhere else. Move to the Valley. And
Marissa's still taking calls.
She is, yes. Although she's now blacklisted Untether.tv. There's no interest at all. Well, it's I love that story. It's land in America, sell your company.
Yeah.
Perfect. The land of opportunity. Our second story here is around this is interesting. We talk about that second screen or the digital out of home experience, and there's so much that goes up around pop-up stores. And I had this great conversation just this week with a VC around some technologies being put into retail locations and fast food locations and screens and all these different ways. And I was challenged is that that. Like the idea of going and spend $1,000 on a screen drives me crazy, right? Like an interactive touch screen and do all these things when we have these devices that we carry with us all the time, which could be the conduit to that screen. And the biggest problem is not display, is it, Asif?
Nope.
The biggest problem is the connection between that screen and me. And then how do I connect with that screen and bring it home with me? Or how does that screen create a connection for that location to the consumer? And that's why this is a company called Linkett. Or a product called Linkett by Weston Expressions, and this is something that's really cool. It's like an add-on to a screen. You plug it into the back of the television or your display or a monitor, and it is an NFC-enabled conduit to the device. So they realize one thing, that the center of our world right now is this, not that stupid screen, it's this. So this is a technology that allows you to literally go up and tap the screen. It's motion detected, so you walk by it, it animates. If you walk by it, it's a great example in the video where it says, it's 20 or 10% off, and then when you walk past it, it says, no, 20% off, please, please, please. It's a little begging, but you hold up an NFC-enabled phone, and you hold it up to this little pad that is attached to the television, the screen, and it transfers that deal or transfers whatever it is to the device, and then you can walk away. And then it's created that link between the screen and the consumer and the value that the consumer gets out of this. And I really like this. I really like the concept of this. I think that screens, smart screens are transient, right? I just don't believe in them. I believe in dumb glass and smarts being carried with you, and creating that linkage between the screen and the consumer, right? So I think that this is a pretty cool tool. I don't know, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I like it a lot too. I think it's a very simple way to do a linkage between the two device types. In the world of digital screens, one of the key challenges you have is the media player aspect of it. So you've got in most of these situations where you've got screens in stores like this, you've got behind the scenes some giant server or computer sitting there, with all the media sitting on it that's feeding content into those screens. And here you have something that's a little almost like a USB device that you just plug into the back of the TV and into a port, and it's you can push content to it on the fly, so it can be updated. With any media you want, and it's triggered by simply proximity by NFC in this case. So I think it's very cool, very unique in its simplicity in the way it works. I expect big things from this, and it's Canadian. Hey,
yes,
there you go.
That's the best part of it. And I mean, if you're interested in that, go to linkett.com, linkett.com, and it just shows you. We're starting to see these proliferation of USB or dongle-based devices. Like even Google came out with their Chromecast this week, which was the ability to take a Chrome tab from your browser. And send it to your television set. It's like Apple TV, but it only costs $30. And I think that this is even Linkett. I think they're giving you 3 devices and a subscription a certain amount of months in subscription for $99 as a kickoff. So, like, you know, what once was prohibitive, which was you have to install new screens in your place of retail at the cost of $1,000 a screen. These smart screens now, you know, for $99 and a service charge every month, you can quite literally hook up 3 screens right now to be able to do this and interact with your consumers. And I think that's disruptive, right? Who knows how long this lasts? But that, to me, just simplicity. Now, the challenge I have with it, Asif, is NFC. Like, it's probably the only way you can do it. There's got to be a way, because Bump, remember Bump and Dave Lieb, they have that technology that allows you to exchange contacts. That's done without Bluetooth or without NFC. It's done with a proprietary technology that, as you know, takes in location and motion and goes up into the cloud and comes back down and transfers the information. It's a very complicated process.
Except you don't want people banging on $1,000 screens.
No, but you know, there's got to be a way to be able to do proximity-based stuff that doesn't involve NFC, that doesn't leave out the 300 million devices that, you know, Apple's devices going forward. Maybe they'll have NFC in the new version, but oh my goodness, like that leaves out a whole bunch of people using all these other versions of the devices. So I know that Android is dominant, but you can't leave out iOS, or else, you know what, there's going to be a huge portion of the consumer base that you're not actually attacking, the ones that are spending the money. So hopefully they come up with something like that. But that's Linkett, Linkett.com. That's our second story. Yeah. All right, I go to movies. I get bombarded with advertisements. How is this next story going to make my life better in a movie theater or outside of the movie theater?
Well, this is definitely not about the movie theater. This is about outside the movie theater.
Yeah.
So this is Cineplex, so another Canadian company, the largest movie theater operator in the country. But what a lot of people don't know about Cineplex is they also have a very large digital out-of-home screen network business called Cineplex Digital Solutions. And so they operate screens in, in the Air Canada Centre where the Leafs play. They operate screens in banks, in Rogers stores, in shopping malls, you know, all over the place. And they went out and they bought a company called EK3 Technologies, which is another Canadian company, London, Ontario-based company. The initial price I saw is $40 million. But it could be
upwards of 70,
Yeah, it could be up to 78 at the top end, based on earnouts and other things. But so a significant purchase.
The big thing about that, Asif, is that it's we talk about often. I talk with entrepreneurs about the hollowing out of the Canadian economy, because companies get to a certain size and they get bought by American firms. And I love the fact that this is a Canadian company buying another Canadian company, keeping this technology inside of Canada. Sorry.
Yeah, and what you have here is really two big players in the digital out-of-home space in Canada in terms of footprint of locations and stores coming together. Because on the one hand, you've got like I said, Rogers stores and Scotiabank and all that with Cineplex existing business. Then you have with the EK3, they've got Tim Hortons, they've got McDonald's, they've got Walmart, they've got Target. I mean, so you have this kind of interesting now mashup of portfolios that come together within a very interesting network. And then, to your earlier point, if you think about the movie theaters, if I can take some of that ad content that I'm working with in the store environments, and I can bring the same ad placement, for a fraction of the cost or additional revenue, if you will, for them into the movie theater, now you've got sort of second or third screen kind of placement going on, and then you bring the mobile device into that, and so on. And think about a technology like Linkett that we just talked about, connected to some of these screens.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that, for me, is another logical tie-in here. So, Cineplex, if you're listening to this, take a look at Linkett. Could be a good fit. Anyways.
There's another Canadian acquisition.
You didn't hear that from me, but
no.
Yeah.
Well, EK3 got their start by providing the screens early on in this business, in this world, to Tim Hortons, which is, for those Americans or anywhere else around the world who don't have a Tim Hortons, if you're not in northern United States or in Canada, you probably haven't been to Canada. Tim Hortons is kind of our national chain of donut shops.
And big in the Middle East now, though, too.
Big in the Middle East. Starting to emerge in northern United States, in New York and some of those areas, but certainly across Canada, there's thousands of Tim Hortons on every street corner. But they were the ones who put the screens, the digital screens inside of there, and now they're extending their relationship with Tim Hortons to be able to bring in those screens and bring in outside advertisers. So you think about what Cineplex has on those screens. When you're at the pre-roll for movies and ads at the movies, you bring those into the Tim Hortons. There's a great mix-up of relationships, and each one of these. So Cineplex has 7,000 screens or locations around Canada. Same thing with EK3. So there's 14,000 screens. This is huge distribution, and that's exactly what people will pay for, is to be able to reach that kind of reach. And I think the only thing missing is contextual segmentation, right? And I think that will come at some point. So you're right. Maybe Linkett is the perfect piece to be able to contextualize the advertising so that you're in a neighborhood, you're in a Tim Hortons on a neighborhood, and you're getting the appropriate ads being displayed to that demographic or psychographic. And I think that, or time of day, right? So I think it's pretty powerful, very powerful, when you get that kind of consolidation and power in Cineplex. And EK3, $40 million up to $78 million. That's a good acquisition. Go Canada. 2 stories out of the top 2 stories right there.
Crazy.
Hopefully we have a little bit more international stuff on the flip side. But before we get there, it's time for our special guest. You sat down with Tyler Bell, who's the director of product for Factual. Tee this up, and then we'll roll right into the interview.
Yeah. So first of all, I'll throw in my apology to Tyler, because when you and I talked about the new products that they released, that Factual released a couple of weeks ago on the show. We had talked about their audience and proximity solutions and all that kind of stuff. I had mentioned Tyler in my comments there, and I had promoted him to CEO.
I'm sure he appreciated that.
And he did. So he's in fact not the CEO. He's the director of product. So I will be clear on that, but nonetheless, fantastic guy, and it was my pleasure to sit down with him this week and get caught up on this. And there's a lot of great things in the location-based data space going on, and a lot of interesting players. But the fact that it's not even a pivot; it's really just a good use case of the data that they already have and that they've been amassing for some time now, to kind of focus it on building audience profiles and opening that up to marketers to target based on and obviously the geofencing capability, which is the key function there for me, is the speed at which they can engage people. And we talked about that a few weeks ago too. Yes. So anyways, hear from the man himself, the head of product, director of product at Factual, Tyler Bell.
The ex-CEO, right?
Yes.
Here's Tyler.
Well, it's that time of week again where we get to bring on a special guest, and this week it's Tyler Bell, the Director of Product over at Factual. Really excited, Tyler, to have you on the show. Welcome to This Week in Location-Based Marketing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and the reason we wanted you on is a few weeks ago, Rob and I were talking about a couple of your new solutions that you put in the marketplace, and we thought, who better to talk about it than you, the guy who's kind of responsible for helping bring those products to market and making them happen. So we're talking about your audience product and your geofencing solutions, proximity, and so on. Maybe just quickly for the audience, for those, I can't believe there's those out there who don't know who Factual is yet, but let's assume that there are. Who is Factual? What are you guys all about? Let's start with that.
So Factual is a location data platform. So the problems that we're trying to solve is that it's very hard to get an understanding of the global commercial landscape. So when a developer or publisher needs to launch any kind of location-based service on mobile or desktop or analytically on the back end, where do they go to understand all of the small businesses around the world and basically use that data layer, build their product upon that data layer? So Factual has 65 million businesses in 50 countries, and that acts as the foundation for a big chunk of the location-based web and mobile web now.
Excellent. And you, as we talked about a few weeks ago, then you announced 2 new solutions. Let's tell us about those solutions. First of all, why did you need to kind of move outside of the market that you were in around sort of just the data piece itself and aggregating that data into one place and into providing these audience solutions and others?
Yeah, it's a great place to start. The data business, where basically we make data and then we sell or license it, is a solid one. It's always going to be a very strong sort of fundamental foundation to our business. But we had a lot of people coming to us that were saying, "Hey, we want to use factual data for more than traditional local search, i.e., here's a coordinate pair, what's around me." And what we saw that they were doing that we found to be most interesting was really beginning to use this commercial layer as an analytical tool to understand the human element. Places don't exist in isolation. There are humans involved. There's people, there's consumers that are connected to businesses. And what businesses people connect with tells a heck of a lot about that individual. In the same way that what's on your iPod that defines who you are,
Mm-hmm.
a counterpoint to that is really the businesses that you go to and you interact with really tells a lot about who you are, what you value, and your demographic and behavioral preferences. So what we've done is we haven't pivoted, we haven't turned away, but we're basically building another interface onto the data. So that the data activities are still a massive part of our engineering efforts, and they always will be. But we've now put these use case specific connectors on top. And the first one is called GeoPulse Audience. And what GeoPulse Audience does is it solves the pain point that mobile developers and publishers just don't know who their audience is. Unlike the web, we don't have beacons, we don't have cookies, we don't have detailed registration information. What many publishers do have, though, increasingly is longitude and latitude information. So GeoPulse Audience works with intermittent longitude and latitude information, timestamp coordinate pairs. The intermittent's a really important part of this. So we're not on the device. You guys have done a lot of coverage and interviews with organizations that have an SDK that balances battery life, that does geo-tracking.
Mm-hmm.
Factual doesn't do that. We want to work with location out as it's captured now for the majority of publishers. And really what that means is that location is being captured intermittently. Maybe when you refresh your Twitter stream or you open up an app, location will be logged and sent back to the server. So we'll take that intermittent location trail over time, weeks and months, and we convert that into a profile on a per individual basis. So we develop a geographic profile, a behavioral profile, and a demographic profile. So we don't do is we don't aggregate audiences like so many folks in the sector right now.
Yep.
It's really geared for, you as a publisher want to know your audience. You give us geodata, we give you profiles back. We don't arbitrage or market those profiles. We really act as a data subcontractor for you.
Okay. And your proximity solution?
The proximity one, so the audience one, think of that as sort of using historical location to build up a contextual understanding of an individual. So it's not real time, it's asynchronous. Proximity is the other side of the coin. It's about that real time data flow. And the problem that many publishers have now, and advertisers, is that there's so much location data coming through that it's very hard to understand which coordinate pairs actually satisfy any given campaign criteria. So let's say if you want to build a campaign that does some kind of geo-trigger or action when you see a coordinate pair that's within 200 meters of any McDonald's, 10,000 plus McDonald's within the U.S., building that in a Postgres or an Oracle spatial database, and then running millions of coordinate pairs through it, you have to throw a lot of iron at that problem. Using traditional point and polygon filters. So what we do with proximity is that's the problem we're solving, is that it allows you to do very high volume, low latency geoqueries, point and polygon geoqueries.
Yep.
Come to Factual, build your geofences on our data, and then you can run this. We will return the data file and the code to you to run on your network, so you can distribute it. We don't put a box in. It's basically a very lightweight interface. It's a very lightweight product for you.
And I think that the speed is one of the key issues there, right?
It's all about speed,
Yeah.
speed and volume, right? So it's not just sort of a few coming through. It's if you think about location streams now, it's going to be a very wide pipe that's carrying Right now, it's a very narrow pipe that has sort of a little bit of water coming through it, but still quite a lot. If you think about Twitter, they have under 10% of tweets getting geotagged, still a boatload of coordinate pairs coming through. Think that most advertising networks see between 10 and maybe 25% of their impressions that are geotagged. That's only going to go up, right? With all these smartphones, location, the volume is going up. So that pipe is getting wider and there's more water running through it. So proximity handles 50,000 queries per second per core. And so on a typical quad-core box, you're talking 200,000 queries per second, which means that we're actually getting to a point now where it doesn't slow down the need for very low latency response times for ad and content serving.
That's awesome. That's great. So, I mean, you've got some fantastic solutions. You've got great data. There's lots of brands and publishers that can take advantage of this stuff. But as an industry, I mean, you guys are, it sounds like you're right where the market, wants to be right now. And, and for me, that's further validated because we're seeing lots of activity in this space. I mean, another one of our members, one of your, colleagues in the space, so to speak, Locationary, on the other side, up here in Toronto, where I'm based, just got acquired by Apple last week. We're seeing more and more of this kind of stuff. I mean, do you expect further validation within the industry and more companies coming in, or do you see more consolidation?
It's funny. A lot of these companies get gobbled up, but I think you'll see others come in. So I think the answer is a little bit of both. Consolidation is happening. Absolutely. But what you're seeing is that new organizations are introducing themselves into very specific verticals within local now, especially on the data production side. So, a big push towards like hours and menu items. And now sort of, you're seeing hours and menu items and prices, but outside of restaurants. So, there's always been sort of the hotel and maybe the restaurants use cases for food and travel. But increasingly now in the data layer, you're finding people that are saying, hey, there's an excellent opportunity here to improve the consumer experience, to improve the analytical experience by focusing on one narrow bit of local. And when I say narrow, it's usually sort of an extended part. It's a vertical specific. Factual focuses on just our core attributes, where a business is, what it's called, what kind of business. These guys are saying, okay, let's build on top of that, and we'll focus on price, or we'll focus on menu items, and they're building on top of that core. So I think it's the broad sort of macro level signal is that there are more companies creating more data that is increasingly granular, and fundamentally that just means there's a better consumer experience all around, and further M&A.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love the space you're in. It's a great time to be there. I mean, I love this. Rob and I are both huge fans of data in general and what you can do with it, and especially when we talk about location and the big data discussion in general. I mean, for me, it always comes down to those 3 V's. I like to describe it: volume, velocity, and variety. Right? I mean, it's about a lot of it. It's about speed, and it's coming from everywhere. So. It's absolutely there. You guys are at the center of it. Congratulations on that. And again, for our audience, it's been great. We've been talking with Tyler Bell, the Director of Product for Factual. Thanks for joining us on the show this week.
Thanks very much.
Well, again, thanks to Tyler for sharing with us a little bit and giving us a bit more deeper insight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, on what's going on over there at Factual and where they're going. And I think there's a lot of room yet in terms of growth, as we alluded to at the end there. So thanks, Tyler, for doing that. We really appreciate it.
And for more information, just go to factual.com. Exactly as it sounds, factual.com. Yes, thank you, Tyler. All right, on to our next story. We got 3 more and then our resource, and then we're going to call it a day. Go and enjoy the day, the heat. I love looking back. I'm a nostalgic guy. Sometimes I think about it all the time. Like, what was I doing last year? What was I doing 2 years ago? What was I doing 3 years ago? There's this company called Timehop, which I downloaded their application. You connect it to all of your social networks, like your Facebook and your Twitter, and it basically surfaces, when you launch it, it surfaces what you did on that day, 1 year ago, 2 years ago, as far back as you can see it. So you'll see all your Twitter posts for that day, all your Facebook posts, or all your Foursquare check-ins. even Instagram photos and all these kind of things that are I don't know, sentimental in nature. And these guys just raised $3 million. They're a New York-based company, and I stopped using it. They have a huge retention rate. Fully 1/3 of the people that download this application or actually register there with Timehop use it every day. Like 33% tune into it every single day. And I found that, I'd wake up in the morning and I'd roll over like I do, and I used to light up a cigarette. Now I just roll over and use my other addiction, which is my iPhone. And I used to thumb through it, and I felt very nostalgic. But then I realized that I haven't advanced in 1 or 2 years, and it was a sharp reality, and I said, I got to get rid of this. This is holding me back. But a lot of people use this, and it's an addictive thing to be able to do. And I certainly don't have any ill wills to it. It just reminded me that I have to start living today as opposed to reviewing yesterday. But these guys raised $3 million in what has been called a Series A crunch. And, in the comments that I've read and the insight that I've read about the company, the only thing that I don't have a clear clue on is how in the hell these guys are going to make money. Like, I don't see a clear path to revenue for these guys, banking on the past. And one guy in TechCrunch said, you know what, they can surface old ads and sell you nostalgic stuff, right? Like Adidas. And, it's a good way to resurrect old brands, I would say. Remember those days? So, I think this is an interesting play. I think it's a novelty play. I'm not really sure how about
old music, though?
You do it old music.
Right.
You definitely could.
So that could be interesting because I don't know about you, Rob, but like we're getting to a certain age now, right? I think we're both in the same category.
We're in the bracket,
where I'm watching what's going on around me, like in the present here, not in the past, but as far as music and movies and cultural stuff, and all I see is guys who were forgotten or they ran out of money. Or something, and all of a sudden they're back on tour after 20 years. Like Depeche Mode is back on tour right now. Yeah. Right?
What's old is new again. Yes.
Fleetwood Mac is back again. Like all these guys that you haven't heard from for like 15, 20 years are back. Right? And it's the same with movies. Like there's no such thing as a new script or new movie. It's like let's just go to the Wizard of Oz and let's just redo that or create a
prequel. Yeah.
Or like I was at a movie the other night with my dad, and one of the previews that came up was this: they're going to do a movie on how Walt Disney convinced the woman, I forgot her name, the author who wrote the story about Mary Poppins, to sell him the rights to do Mary Poppins. Like
we've run out of new ideas.
Yeah, so we've run out of new ideas. So let's go to the past.
So Timehop can sell nostalgia.
There you go.
Well, I like that. I appreciate the fact that you didn't lump Bruce Springsteen in there as these guys that are coming back, because he's been on the road for basically.
No, he's been on the road forever.
Yeah, he hasn't retired. He certainly doesn't need the money. But these guys, I can understand that. But it's such a niche. Like, how do you value a company enough to be able to give them $3 million in Series A, and huge retention? But if you can't convert. So you've got 100% of your audience that have downloaded the application and registered. A third of them come back every single day. But there's such a gap between there. So even if you convert a third, right, of that third that are using it every day, what is it? Is it you're displaying ads? Is that really about revenue? Is that enough revenue to sustain a business or to sustain a valuation where you're going to get $3 million in Series A? So I struggle with this. I like the service, but I struggle with the fact that that these guys, I don't know if they have a good business model. I would love. I've reached out to these guys before to come on and have a deep conversation on Untether.tv. I would love it to have that conversation, but I certainly don't want this product to go away. But I've stopped using it, and I'm not sure how they turn it into revenue.
Well, let's make that a target to get Jonathan their CEO on the show and let's hear about it. But I like this too. I mean, and even when I think about Foursquare, and I've said this over and over again, I mean, I still use it, I still check in, but for me, it's not about checking in, it's not about deals, it's not about badges, it's not about any of that. The value personally I get from Foursquare is this historical log. Because I travel all over the place.
Yeah.
And for me, it's that what was the name of that restaurant I was at 6 weeks ago in Seattle? Oh, let me go check my Foursquare history and check-ins, and I can look it up, right? And I can pull up the name of that place. That's the value for me
Yeah.
of Foursquare still today.
Yeah.
And in some respects, it's very similar to what we're talking about here. And by the way, Dennis Crowley and Naveen Salvadora, who's two of the founders of Foursquare, are two of the angel investors behind this company as well.
Yeah.
So,
well, I came across this other company called Our Moments, and it's at ourmoments.co, ourmoments.co. And this is really, when you think about contextual information, is that I like this kind of play. It's kind of a play around Timehop, but it's literally it's reminding you of an experience that you had at a specific location. So say you are at a location and you take a bunch of photos and you tweet about it, or you put a Facebook post or something like that, and then years down the road, or a week down the road, or a day down the road, you walk past that location, it'll prompt you based on the location that you've got shared memories here at this particular spot. And I like that kind of prodding that it does. So it's contextually relevant to me. If I really feel sentimental, I can walk past this school that I went to, and then it would show all these. You could see Timehop maybe doing that, where you add a location layer to this, and all of a sudden Timehop's information becomes so relevant and contextualized to that moment. Instead of me lying in bed, like scrolling through what I did 3 or 4 years ago, add a location layer to this, and it prompts me when I land at a park that's important to me when I was a young kid, that this is where there's shared memories here, and then pull up those memories at that time, and it enhances that experience, I think, because right now,
I mean, it sounds like it's a logical connection to the way people use Facebook, quite frankly, in terms of who you're connected to on Facebook typically.
Yeah.
Right, high school friends and this, that, and the other thing, and for a lot of people, that's the use case of Facebook. Not me, but but for a lot of people, it is about connecting with old friends and family and relatives and this, that, and so if you can connect that to a history of your past in this context, could be interesting.
Maybe that's where they go. $3 million for Timehop. If you're interested, go to timehop.com. The other company that I mentioned was ourmoments.co. They're both available on iOS. Go and download. There's no Android version for Timehop, from what I can see, or Our Moments. But let us know what you think. Are we way off here? And if you happen to have any contacts into Timehop, we'd appreciate it. Let's get them on here to talk about what they're going to do with this money and how they're going to make some money. All right, our next story. This is out of Australia. Finally, we're going to move. We went Canada, U.S. Now we're in Australia.
There you go. So this is a company called Imersia. It's actually New Zealand based.
Yeah, nice. Australia. I know my geography. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It's just across the pond, so to speak. So New Zealand-based company teamed up with 20th Century Fox in the movie Epic, which you've seen. I have not seen. But certainly was a big movie in the last few months. As far as the young children are concerned, and McDonald's teamed up with them as well, I think, for toys and a whole bunch of other stuff going on. So it was a pretty big animated flick this summer. So Imersia, which is an augmented reality company, 20th Century Fox behind the movie Epic, Westfield Malls, which is a shopping mall operator in New Zealand, all kind of worked together. And what they did is in the middle of one of the malls, they built this little kind of display to kind of promote the Epic movie, and it kind of like had sort of how like when you go to the mall and you see Santa's Village at Christmas, well, this was like Epic Village, so to speak, and so you had characters and you had trees and different images and stuff from the movie. Again, I haven't seen it, or the Land of Nim or something like that it's called.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Basically what you would do is they had these coloring sheets, and kids would take these things away or do it on site, and you could color in these pictures from scenes from the movie, and then you would go up to an area within this display at the mall, and you would hold up your drawing, your coloring to this thing, and using AR technology and the mobile app, basically out of your drawing would come a movie,
cool.
A video that would jump out of your actual drawing that you're holding up, all location based as well. So you would get different stuff based on what mall you're in and where you were, versus other malls and things like that. So really, really cool combination of technology and a tie-in and drawing kids in and their parents and everything else. What do you think?
You know what? if I had seen this when I was a kid, something that I drew come to life through augmented reality, I think it would have blown my mind. It'd be in a state of shock. So I think that this kind of stuff is amazing for creating an immersive, interactive experience and kind of stimulate creativity in children like this. I can't imagine that they go home and they're like coloring in their coloring book at this point, and then they hold it up like, okay, let's do this, and nothing happens. Right? It's like total setting up for disappointment. But it shows you. I mean, that's the kind of thing is that we've got to create a generation of makers. And how do you do that? You create imagination opportunities for these guys, and it's not just about sitting back and watching on screen. Because I think my kids, they're almost 7. They look at a screen and they don't think twice about the effort that went into Cars or Cars 2. Those are characters, like they're actors. They could be real for all they know, right? And at a certain age, they are real. So the idea that that's on screen doesn't give them that creative burst. But when they sit down there and they're able to draw something and that comes to life like this, it just stimulates the imagination, gets them creatively thinking. And hopefully what that does is it inspires them to go beyond and to understand how hard it is to do these things. But the tools are there to enable these kids to do it. So I love this kind of stuff.
Oh, it's crazy. Like my son, he still thinks Iron Man is real.
Yeah.
Like he's like, where does Tony Stark live? Like where's his office?
Well, his name's Elon Musk, right?
Yeah.
That's Tony Stark. Absolutely. Like, so, and I have that, you have that hard time. I just have to remind my kids they are Woodbridge children. And, despite my wife's best efforts, they are still of Woodbridge ilk. And I'm like, guys, you can't fly. I'm going to put that. You can't fly.
You can't fly. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Dad, I can. I'm like, no, just Superman can fly. You? No. Now, but what I want to do is create an experience where they can invent something that helps them to fly with a whole bunch of mattresses at the bottom of the stairs, right? So, just safety precautions. I don't want them to jump off the tree for it. I like this stuff. I think that when it becomes very powerful is when you bring that into the house and you can enable this. And it's very powerful for brands when you can bring that technology out of the theaters, elongate the actual, life of a movie like Epic. And then if I can bring that home, man, I think that's a win as well. So I can't wait to see those kind of scenes, like the home augmented reality in a box kind of thing. And that will come soon. Absolutely.
Yes.
Very cool. I like that story, Asif. I like that story. And the movie Epic, great flick. So our last story, Asif, in-car stuff. We always talk about the fact that telematics is going to be, the battle for the car dash is going to be huge. And here's a company, Garmin, which basically we start to think about as old school technology. And maybe they realize that it's transferred from their hardware to these screens. And now they've come up with something called basically a heads-up display. And I believe in this technology. I believe in heads-up display. I think this is what we're starting to see is experimentation. We see it with Google Glass, although it's maybe not the appropriate piece of technology for everybody. But here is Garmin, who's basically created a box that sits on your dashboard that does heads-up display onto your windshield that ties in through your device, through Bluetooth, and gives you heads-up display and directions. Basically it tells you when you're going to be there. It's anything that you would get from the technology without the map. And I like this simply because I don't like looking down at my screen. I don't have my screen positioned where it's attached to the window because I don't think it's legal in Canada to do that. So I like the idea that I can put my phone into the charger, connect it to this HUD, and then the HUD gives me a heads-up display on the screen, tells me what direction to go, left, right, center, keep going, and when I'm going to be there, and the temperature is when I'm going to arrive, which is often the same as when I leave. But I like this kind of concept that brings the smarts of the phone, which is at the center for me of my life, and actually displays relevant information on my windshield so that I can actually don't have to look down and divert my attention from the road. This is a pretty cool technology, and it's $130 from Garmin.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's a harbinger to kind of where we're going in the vehicle in terms of pushing stuff into the windshield. For me, there's two pieces on the technology side that I'm really excited about here. The one is the fact that the device, this $130 device, is using projection, which is something I expect a lot of in the future. I expect every smartphone will have a built-in projector. And so while this is not a smartphone, it's using projection in a very small scale device. So that's one. Two is it also has sensors on it. It adjusts the brightness depending on the natural light coming into the car automatically.
Yeah,
like that's pretty cool.
it is.
So those two things are really interesting, sort of for me, technology innovations, and bring interesting technology in a small scale down to the device layer. So I like this stuff.
It's interface, right? Like when you talk about user experience, that's exactly what it is. It's like the small things that don't distract from driving. So, I mean, the other night I was driving with Google Maps, and I used Google Maps to get to a location, and we drove home late at night, and I used Google Maps to get there. They don't have that simple thing. It's the simplest thing on iOS. They don't have the day-night switch, right? So you're driving down the highway, and it's dark, and this thing is blaring light. You have to adjust your screen. I mean, that is a terrible user experience. So at least like Garmin thinks about that. They don't want to distract you from your driving. They want to basically be there as an aid to your driving. But they've thought about that. And Google, it's so surprising. I don't understand.
And this is great. And the other thing I like about it is that it's Android, it's iOS, it's Windows, Smartphone 8. They support everything. So it's.
But it's only based on the software that you can use, right? I think that's
right.
That's the challenge. Is that the software is. What they allow you to have, like I know that it's Navigon and their own and Garmin Street Pilot are the two pieces of software that work on the mobile device.
So it doesn't do Google Maps or anything yet, but hopefully that will come. And then the other piece that I think at the moment I would like to see them work on is in terms of keying in destinations. You have to manually do that on the device like you would with a traditional Garmin or any other handheld device of this nature. So you can't just speak and give it voice prompts like you would with some of the sort of embedded navigation systems you have in cars today. So
maybe this is transient, but this is something that I would buy because my car is a 6-year-old car and it doesn't have this kind of technology in. But I would assume that as we're going through this, the dashboard becomes much more important. The Siri integration into Ford vehicles, all of a sudden, then you've got that little, you've got an automatic heads-up display that's built into the dash in a number of years from now, and it'll be projecting on your windscreen anyways at some point. So, but this at least a little bit of innovation from Garmin.
Yeah.
Available sometime this summer. They don't know when, for $130. Count me in. Count me in.
All right.
Awesome.
Yeah, or just sponsor the show, and then Rob and I can afford to go buy one of these.
Yeah, exactly. That's all. Yeah, give us each $130, or send us the product. We'll do a live video review of that.
There you go.
Perfect. So is that it for the 6 stories? That's it?
Well, we got one little sort of corollary story to this, and that is AT&T and AudioVox. So just sticking with the car for a second, kind of announced an interesting joint venture this week. So there's a subsidiary of AudioVox called Vox, VOXX, and
of course.
and so still sticking with the telematics piece. Basically, what they're announcing is a system where they're looking at a whole bunch of sensor-based parameters, location, GPS, accelerometers, a whole bunch of things that they're kind of working together to do this kind of onboard diagnostic. But it's plug and play, and basically does fuel consumption measurements and all kinds of things based on location. So think about things like if I've got Google Maps or great mapping data of places around me, and I live in areas that I'm climbing mountains all day and along the coast of California or whatever the case might be, and if my car could be adjusting itself in advance, knowing that I'm about to climb a mountain, and it didn't have to do all the manual shifting, so to speak, but it could do that based on data and knowing my location and where I'm going and all that kind of stuff. That's pretty cool stuff, right? In terms of the potential fuel savings and all that. I mean, just think about those kinds of things. And so we're seeing Mercedes is building some of this kind of stuff into their vehicles right now. But that whole idea of optimizing performance based on location data is really interesting. And so on top of that, in this system, it's got maintenance alerts and reminders that get sent to you through this app. It's got features in here that connect to Google Maps, so that you can, like, if you parked your car at the in a big shopping mall parking lot, you can locate your car. I mean, it's got a whole bunch of crazy stuff that they've put all together into this service. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is so fascinating, isn't it? When you start to think about that, the impact that location has on everything, on wear and tear in your car. The underlying technology is awesome, but what it has to do is it just has to be automatic, right? Like at some point, like, we shouldn't care. Like,
it should just be there.
It should just be there. And you know what? You download the application, you basically sync with your car, you connect to your car, so it knows your calendar, it knows where you're going. You know, we talked about all these personal assistants like Donna or Twist. So it has all this information, and it just should do. It should be able to pull down the meter, the weather information and the time of day and the temperature of the asphalt, and it should just say, okay, this is it, and we'll take care of it. And when you leave your car, you don't even have to set the location. If you get lost, we're there for you. We will actually know where your car is only when you need to know, right?
Yep.
So I think that's, and then the best thing would be is, like, if you could just top up the meter so I don't get a ticket, that'd be great, right? Automatically.
There you go.
Right, the automatic experience. I love that. I love the power that we're talking about here. We're just at the beginning. We don't know what we don't know yet about this kind of stuff, which is so cool.
Yeah, and if you just didn't have to hold that phone to put it in the charger, Rob, I don't know.
Exactly. Well, not interested in. Yeah, that is the big challenge here. Is that there's a kind of a melding that is happening between these devices and the cars and everything, and people are quickly realizing that for better or for worse, this is the device that we've always got with us when we walk into our house and into our car. And I so strongly believe that this is that conduit. This is the key for now until something comes up. It could be a Google Glass. It could be an Apple Watch. But, I mean, it would take an insane amount to get me to wear a watch again because of this device, because a watch only has one function. And I can't imagine that anything else would inspire me to wear another watch. But we'll see. We'll see. So that's cool. We got Garmin's HUD, we've got AudioVox and AT&T, some amazing technology. I think the tide has turned for telematics. I think that the car is now where most of the innovation is happening.
Absolutely.
And the opportunities are there in spades, that's for sure. And we're not even talking about the driverless car from Google. All right, those are the 6 and a bit stories. Great app of the week. We had the Mobile Minute. We had our guest, Tyler Bell from Factual. The only thing left is our resource, which is also fascinating for me. I love data like this, Asif.
Yeah, so this is really cool. This is kind of looking at it's an article called "Most Smartphone Users Engage in Showrooming in Stores." Pretty straightforward stuff, but it's the data that really jumps out in this report. So. I think one of the key things here that for me was, is the first stat in the middle of this article that you and I were talking about at the beginning, and that is, it says Amazon is used twice as often for showrooming as the number 2 option, Google Inc. And 46%, this is it, 46% of shoppers who use Amazon to showroom are also members of Amazon Prime.
That's crazy.
Which is their premium service that you sign up to. You pay a fee for $79 a year. You pay for this thing for free shipping and stuff. So it means if you've made that commitment to Amazon, you're paying them $79 a year just to be a member of Amazon Prime to get free shipping and all that. That when you walk into a store, you're going to take a look and do that comparison, like half the time. You're just going to do it because you've got this thing over here that you've already made a commitment to, and that's eye-opening for me.
Yeah, I mean, I find it like it's a small amount, $79 a year, you get free shipping and unlimited video streaming and all that kind of stuff that comes with Amazon Prime. Yeah. But the piece that doesn't surprise me is that because I made that commitment, now every product is scannable. Every product I can find a deal on Amazon. And the corollary to that is that somewhere over 65 or 66, I think 67% of people who actually are into showrooming, we'll say, will buy from the store if they match the price that they find online, which is a huge opportunity. But also MSRP, we've talked about this. MSRP is dead. So
Yes.
I think it behooves you as a retail app, as a retail location, to do your price comparison every day, so that your customer doesn't have to do that. That they'll be pleasantly surprised that there is matching going on, or you have a pricing strategy that is like this. Because if half of the people walking in of Prime members are actually looking at the prices on Amazon, it just shows the influence of that behemoth. I'm astounded by this, and certainly I think that it just shows the influence that Amazon has on the retail landscape. And it is maybe it's getting a little bit prettier. People are wising up to what's going on, but that commitment, how do you create a commitment for your consumers to be able to then feel like they own, that you are at the center, not Amazon? So if you're a retailer, how can you generate a little bit of, I don't know, a yearly subscription fee that gives them benefit, but then that would take them away from Amazon or make them think twice about actually doing that? Because when Amazon does same-day delivery and eBay is doing same-day delivery, and in fact eBay is doing, I just saw a clip where eBay is actually doing deliveries within an hour of product. So how do you compete with that as a retail location, where I can be in the store and before I get home, the product that I got at a discount compared to what you're selling is actually at my house? It's delivered before I get home.
Well, it comes to, at the end of the day, it comes down to, unique experience in the store, customer service, all those kinds of things that you can only do, like those physical interaction pieces, right? And it, I keep saying it, for me, when I think about Best Buy, and that's where a lot of the showrooming discussion started. The whole Geek Squad thing, and I've said this before. Where they had this, you bought a computer and then you needed help getting it set up or troubleshooting something or whatever. That they had this partnership with this company called Geek Squad, and they could send somebody out to you to fix that. Well, for me, why didn't they keep that in the store? Why didn't they like tell you to bring your thing into the store and get it fixed and do all this kind of stuff, right? I mean, and own that relationship and own that service piece like Apple does. Like if I have a problem, I can book an appointment and go to the Genius Bar and they can solve it for me, right? Yeah. But it gets me in the store and it gets me looking at their iPad mini and their other thing and this, that. I mean, like it's, you know what I mean? Like it's
smart. It's definitely smart. Yeah, and the last thing that I would ever do is invite a computer technician into my home or my office. It makes sense. It makes sense to do what Apple's done, especially from the consumer standpoint. So, experience in the store. Will that overcome this showrooming stuff? Will that disable Amazon? They didn't have a great quarter, but they don't care. I mean, this is going to be one of the most valuable companies on the planet.
It's like it's like the Imersia thing. Yeah. If I can do something and then go to this environment and have a unique experience, like in the shopping mall where my coloring drawing comes to life,
exactly. It enhances the brand, boy. Part of a bigger discussion, and that is it. Though we have covered everything we can, and it's amazing that this we're going to do it again in a week, and brand new stories, brand new everything, and still we'll be able to talk about this for hours, Asif. And I think that's the big challenge about this industry, is it's just getting too big. We're going to have to do this daily. Can you imagine?
Yes.
An hour a day.
Not happening.
Not happening. All right. Well, that is it for episode number 140. We will be back next week for episode number 141, if you do the math. But please, in the interim, we'd appreciate a review on iTunes. We'd also certainly love you to leave us a question at untether.tv/talk. We'll play that on the air, or we will include it in an upcoming episode where we just answer questions. But please start to interact with us. We'd appreciate any feedback, comments, suggestions, or questions. Just bring them through those mechanisms, or you can always reach out at rob@untether.tv or sif@thelbma.com, or follow us on Twitter at Rob Woodbridge or at AsifRKhan. That's it?
That's it.
All right, Asif. We'll see you next week for episode number 141. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Thanks.
See you later.